Awesome. So, welcome to Thriving Through Trauma. This is your host, Kofi Thompson, and I'm so excited for our guest today, Holley Mignosi. Did I say that right?
You did, like a rock star, Mignosi. Well done.
Oh, thank you so much. And oh my gosh, it hasn't been too long that we've known each other. Jerome actually introduced us, and I trust everything that Jerome has to say. He's absolutely an amazing person, and he suggested that you hop on my podcast. And when I read through your story, Holly, I was just so captivated and inspired by the journey that you've been through to get to where you are today. It is absolutely amazing, and I know right now you're absolutely just crushing it as a speaker, a storyteller, a body language expert, and you help people increase their influence and impact through hypnotic body language and the neuroscience of storytelling. Oh my gosh, I can't
Right.
wait to just delve into that. And you've had years of experience in the celebrity modeling industry as an acting coach and personal trainer, and you've helped a quarter million people
Yeah, it's a big number.
embody their message. That is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You're gonna help so many more as well. And you use the 5 phases of powerful storytelling, which we're gonna be delving into a little bit later. But with that, you help us experts command the stage and use your techniques to help people land their prestigious speaking gigs and their powerful partnerships and global connections. So I'd love for you to just delve into and tell us a bit about how you got to where you are today, Holly, because just, oh my gosh, the things you're doing today are it's absolutely amazing.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kofi. You are very kind, and it is an honor and a privilege to be here today on your incredible show, showcasing people that are thriving through trauma. So, thank you so much for this
Of
amazing
course.
opportunity, and I'm very honored. Yeah, my story, if you would have told me when I was early in my 20s that I would be standing here telling people my story and opening up what I call opening the kimono and letting everybody into my deep, dark
Hmm.
secrets and the skeletons in the closet, I would have said, oh, heck no, no way. That is not anything I want to sign up for. But, the universe just has an amazing way of taking all of our trials and tribulations and allowing us to flourish through them and to be able to share them with others.
Mm,
So, really, my start was because of drugs.
mm.
So I couldn't stop using cocaine because if I did, I would lose my job. Now I know you might be thinking like, wait. Isn't it supposed to be the reverse? Like you better stop using or you're
Yeah.
going to lose your job. But mine was actually not that way. I was in my early 20s when I started modeling and
Mm,
acting, and I was living basically my dream life, my best life. During the day, I was emceeing fashion shows, I was doing local TV
mm,
commercials, and then at night, I got to help other aspiring models and actors from as little as age 4 years old, all the way up to 74 years old, break into the business. So I was doing what I loved, helping people, making good money. And here I am at the young age of 22. I mean, isn't that
mhm,
what life is about? I thought, okay, I've arrived, I'm successful. And all of that came to a screeching halt. When I was
mm,
about 23, the owner of the company pulled all of us runway coaches into the room and said, okay, we're taking the company global. And he wanted his company to be the number one modeling and acting company in the industry.
mm.
And he said, in order to do that, all of you need to look like celebrity models and actors. And in that moment, I knew I was in trouble because I don't look like a celebrity model or actress, especially models. Celebrity models are 5'11, 5'10. I'm only 5'8. And they have a very specific body type, very thin and willowy. And let's just say I'm a little more athletic, a little more curvy, and I didn't quite fit that mold. And he proceeded to pull out a measuring tape. And he asked for the first runway coach to step onto the runway, and he measured us publicly. We had to have very specific measurements to fit into that category. And he measured her bust, her waist,
Mhm,
and her hips. And he said, oh, you're perfect. And I knew he would.
mhm.
And then he called the second runway coach up and he measured her bust, her waist, and her hips. And he said, perfect. And I knew he would. And then he called me and I got really nervous. And I got up on the runway and I just tried to like exhale all my air and make myself as small as I possibly could. And he measured my bust and my waist, excuse me, which was fine. But by the time he got to my hips, they were not one, not two, not three, but 4 inches too big. And to you and me right now, that may not seem like a big deal. But in the industry, it's everything. You're either perfect or you're not. And he looked at my hips, pointed to them, turned to everybody else and said, if any of you have this problem, fix it or you're fired. And these were my coworkers. These are my friends. These are my peers. And in that moment, I was publicly humiliated. I felt like the bad apple of the bunch. I was the one that was bringing everyone down. Everyone else was perfect except for me. And I was having so much pain that I decided in that moment, I made a decision. I said, I will never feel this kind of pain ever again. And I was on like a mad dash, very determined. I'm a very determined, persistent person. And so I was determined to get those inches off. But Kofi, I'm 5'8" and I was a size 4.
Mm.
I wasn't overweight. I was actually ideal. I was healthy. I used to exercise at that time.
Mm.
I was fit, but I didn't fit into that particular mold. So I started doing everything I could, exercising more, dieting more, and really buying every pill, powder, and shake on the market, guaranteed to make you lose weight or your money back. Well, I tried it all and the weight wouldn't come off until someone showed me a little bag of white powder. And she said, hey, try this. And it was a friend. And I thought, well, I've tried everything else. Why not? And so I did. It was cocaine and I used it. And, in just a few weeks, the inches came off. I was soon strutting down the hallway in my new sleek physique, getting compliments from coworkers, accolades from my boss. I even got a raise, got a promotion. And on the outside, it looked like, I was living the good life. It looked like I had it all together, but that was far from the truth. On the inside, I was falling apart, Kofi. I had headaches, heart palpitations, sleepless nights. I was exhausted all the time, partly from the drug, but partly just from not eating. I had no energy. My mood swings were up and down, but the worst of all, I was a fraud. I knew that if I quit, the weight would come back. And so that started my 10-year relationship on and off with drugs as a way to manage my weight. And I did that until it got really dangerous. So I'm in my early 30s. I met someone, we got married, I got pregnant. We had a beautiful daughter. Now I was able to stop using drugs while I was pregnant, because it's okay to gain weight when you're pregnant, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
right? That's okay.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process. But eventually some problems showed up in the marriage, and that pressure to be thin was really pushing down on me again. And that old frenemy of cocaine came back into my life. Only this time we were both using. So here I was, married with a beautiful 3-year-old daughter, and I'm using. And I felt awful about myself, but I didn't know how to stop until the day when it got so dangerous that it endangered my family's life. My husband and I at the time, we walked in the house and we had been out all night. Our daughter was staying with our live-in nanny. And we came to the door and our blue-eyed, blonde-haired ball of sunshine looked up at us and was like, Mommy, Daddy, where were you? Play with me. So it's like 7 a.m. and my husband goes, I'm going to bed. So he goes off to bed and I sit down and start playing Tea Party with her. She had the pink cup, I had the blue one, and she had this cute little pink tutu with flowers all over it. And so we're playing and I'm exhausted and I actually get a little thirsty. So I leave and I go to the kitchen to grab water. When I come back, she's not in the living room. I'm like, where'd she go? So I open up her bedroom door. She's not there. Okay. I open up her bathroom door. She's not there. Okay. And I look down the hallway. And our bedroom door is open just a few inches. And you know that feeling you get, like intuition, where something's wrong. You don't know what it is, but you just have this feeling that something's not right. And I slowly opened up the bedroom door. To the left, my husband is sleeping. And on the floor is our beautiful 3-year-old holding my drugs in her hands. I was terrified. My heart fell into my stomach. I rushed to her. I grabbed the drugs, threw them away, checked her mouth. I was so afraid that she had ingested something. That's a pretty strong drug for an
Yeah.
adult, let alone a child. I was terrified, and I picked her up and I looked, and I had gotten there just in time. She hadn't ingested anything. She hadn't opened everything. It was fine. And I held her. And as I held her in my arms, I just felt this tremendous amount of guilt. And then all of a sudden, something shifted and I heard a voice. It wasn't my voice. I call it a divine download.
Mm.
And it was a series of questions. This voice said, what if you didn't get there in time?
Mm.
What if you had to call the police? What if they called CPS because you're using drugs? What if they took her away from you? And then I heard the questions, what if she went into foster care? And the worst one of all, I could see, hear, and feel, what if she never knew you, but she was just like you? She followed in my footsteps. And that was something I did not want. And in that moment, that pain, again, funny how pain is a really powerful motivator. The pain that made me choose to use drugs, that pain of hurting somebody else, hurting my loved one, hurting my daughter, not just now in the moment, but actually impacting her future, that I could traumatize her and myself. I decided in that moment, I will never feel this pain again, and she will not have that future. But I need to do 3 things. I need to quit drugs. I need to quit my marriage because it's dysfunctional. And I need to quit my job, the only thing I've ever known and loved, because in that environment, a healthy me couldn't flourish. I had no idea how I was going to do it. And honestly, if you think about just quitting one of those things, quitting the only job you've had over 10 years, I was in the industry, I didn't know anything else, or quitting your marriage or quitting drugs, just one of those things by itself is a hell of a feat. I had to do all 3. I had no idea how I was going to do it. The modeling and acting industry had taught me to fake it until you make it. But in this moment, I needed to faith it until I could make it, if you know what I'm saying. I needed to have faith in my vision, something better, something inside me, and to listen to the guiding voice that was saying, this is your one reminder, right? Your warning. You need to do something now. So I quit drugs, and the cravings were hellacious. I mean, like I would go into sweats. I would start strategizing. Okay, how can I find something? It's a powerful substance that takes over your mind. And I knew I needed help. So I was embarrassed to go for professional help. And instead of going to like Narcotics Anonymous, which I definitely qualified for, I decided to find the help of a personal trainer to get healthy physically. My logic at the time was, if I can be healthy physically, I can detox all this stuff out of my system. I can feel good about myself and get on track. Now, side note, if you or someone you know is dealing with this issue, I don't recommend that you necessarily follow my footsteps and only get a personal trainer. I do recommend you get professional help. But this was my journey. This was my path. This is the way things were going for me. So I hired a personal trainer. His name was Tom the trainer. He was 6'2", Italian, fit. His muscles had muscles. I mean, like I was highly motivated to not miss one single workout. I was like, okay, I'm showing
Love
up,
it.
like, right. But, you know, I think that God, universe, higher power, whatever word you call it, you know, had a plan for me. And for the first time, Tom the trainer gave me compliments, not for being skinny, but for being strong. And not for skipping meals, but for eating the right meals. Like my whole paradigm started to shift. And I felt strong, I felt empowered, and I felt like I was getting my life back. And he said, you know what, Holley, I think you're pretty good at this working out thing. You should be a personal trainer. And I said, well, I like teaching. I know the problems that women deal with when it comes to their health and fitness. And I think you're right. I think I need a new job. So why not? So within 4 months of knowing each other, Tom, the trainer, and I opened up our own fitness business called Beyond Fitness. And it was an instant success. All these clients came, and he was kind of training the guys. I was training the women. We had husband and wife teams. It was awesome. But I had a new problem. Isn't it interesting how life will offer us problem, solution, new problem, solution, to peel away these layers and to show us that we have more inside. I felt so good in my fit body. in my whatever size it wanted to be body because I was healthy, but I had a
Mhm.
new problem. See, the problem was here I am supposed to be a role model of health and fitness, and
Mhm.
I was using drugs 6 months earlier. What if my clients found out? So I was hiding my story. You know, how many times do we feel shame or embarrassment about a choice that we made and we don't want anyone to know
Oh,
because
yeah.
we're afraid of humiliation or judgment? I had all that going on. And so I didn't want to tell anybody, but there was another plan that was starting to unfold. See, a little bit of my story, I shared it with one of my clients, and she made these incredible connections. And she said, "Oh, I get it. You weren't addicted to food, but you were addicted to drugs. And addiction is addiction. And that's why you have so much compassion for people like me."
Mm.
And I was like, huh, I never thought of that. You see, when we share our story from the heart, people will be able to find themselves in our story and make these connections and revelations that are important to them. And I said, gosh, I never really thought of it that way, but maybe that is my mission and the reason why I'm here, and I can help you. Well, you probably have heard that facts tell, but stories sell.
Oh,
So
yes.
she took my story to the church and she started sharing, her results, her success. She was getting her fit body, her dream body. And then she was sharing my story of who I am and what I was about with all of her friends and family. Next thing you know, Kofi, our business doubles. Like my story, I wasn't even telling my story. Somebody else was telling my story and bringing me clients, because the power of our story, the power of going through trauma to victory,
Mhm.
it's the classic underdog story. It's the most powerful story in history. And we all have a story like that in our life. And it's inspiring. And so, because I was able to be so open and so honest, people felt like, well, if Holley can share her story with me, I can share my story with her, and she can support me. So our business doubled. Our fitness business is growing. We've got a brick and mortar business. Our business started in 2005. By 2010, it's
And
booming. And I started to feel this inner calling,
mhm.
right? Problem, solution, problem, solution. My inner calling says, you're going to get back on stage again. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. Inner calling says, oh, yes, you will, but you're not going to be a model and you're not going to be an actress. You're going to be you. And you're going to share with people your story. And that's the inner calling inside. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. And the inner calling says, yes, you are. And I thought I was going to be sharing my story and motivating women to love their body, no matter what size it was. I was like, okay, I think this is my story. I think this is my movement. This is my message, my mission. And so I started training on storytelling with some of the best in the business. I had already been trained through Tony Robbins as a high performance coach. And I started training with Brendan Burchard and Bo Eason of
Mm.
storytelling and Shilling Johnson and Roger Love, different facets of speaking on stage. And as I'm training with them, I started to feel this pivot. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe my calling isn't just health and fitness. Maybe it's about helping people on stage, because I would see people speak on stage. Two people both had powerful messages.
Mhm.
One person would share their message, their talk, their story, and the audience is just like engaged, leaning forward, eating it up. They're laughing, they're cheering, they're standing ovation. And the other speaker equally qualified, people are bored. They're looking at their
Mm.
phone. They're going to the bathroom. They're checking out. And my heart, because of what I know so much about stage performance and captivating an audience, my heart is like, oh gosh, if I could just tell them to do this with their body language, or put your toes to the nose of the stage when you share your offer, or when you're talking to someone and inviting them into your course or your program, don't put your hands up like a stop sign. That means stop. Actually make a motion like you're inviting them in,
Mm.
like, hey, we can do this together. And so these little light bulbs start going off, and I start feeling like, wow, I think I can have a huge impact, not just with my message, but with people who have messages. Maybe I'm meant to bring all that history and turn my history into her story and
I
his
love it.
story, and show them how to deliver
Oh.
with star power on stage as themselves, not as a model or an actress, right? Authentically sharing as themselves.
Mhm.
And That's how my business started. I was
Oh,
terrified, but I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to create a course on storytelling. I'm going to share it with my community, see who shows up. First time I shared it with my community, sold out in 6 days. 6 days.
that
And
is
now
absolutely
thank you.
amazing.
I'm so excited to say that I've been able to help just incredible entrepreneurs, men and women, craft their story and move. You and I were talking in the green room just before we went
Mhm.
on about not standing in your story, but standing on your story like a mountain,
Yes.
like you've reached the top.
And I
And
love that. I
thank
love that
you.
so much because I think, in so many different ways, for many people in our audience as well, oftentimes they have this narrative about themselves and they are now, living out this narrative, even though those experiences have now passed in their lives, but they're still living in that like victim kind
Yes.
of narrative mindset.
Yes.
And the way you phrase that, standing on top of your story, is truly just owning it and
Mm.
conquering that. So like, please, share more about that, standing on top of your story instead of standing in. Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Thank you. Well, the thing that I think makes it so powerful is we all have a story. We
Hmm.
all have something that we've gone through that was extremely challenging, and we're still here. We made it. So how can we use that and the tools that we gained from that
Hmm.
experience and share it with others? So there were three really powerful things. I mean, there's lots actually of powerful things that I learned through this situation, but one of the things that I learned was that we need to empower our body. When we empower our body, we empower our
Yes.
life, right? On every level. And I know
Hmm.
you're going through a fast right now, so you know what I'm
Oh
talking
yeah,
about, right?
48 hours. We're on hour 18 right now. We'll see.
I'm bowing to you. I'm like, whoo,
Thank
okay, you
you.
go. Because I know that's a challenge. But when we empower our body, we empower our life because this is our vehicle that we live through and move
Hmm.
through. So that was one of my first big lessons. And the second big lesson was we need to go where we're celebrated, not
Mm,
tolerated. In the modeling and acting industry, I wasn't celebrated. The healthy fit me wasn't good enough.
mm.
So if you're in an environment where the healthy, vibrant, light shining, motivating, inspirational self isn't being celebrated, I guarantee you there's a place where you will be. So start seeking that out. And then the third big lesson, of course, was storytelling, the power of releasing your story. And the biggest thing that I got from this and my clients received from this, and I don't advertise it, but it's a
Mm,
beautiful byproduct, is the healing process. Because prior to me sharing my story, I had nothing but shame
mm.
for my past.
I think that is, it's something so many people can align with and really, recognize in their own story. For me personally, like there were a lot of experiences that I went through that, you know, were very hard for me to share. And I think it's so true that sharing your story, allows people to, help and connect with you and what you're trying to do. So I'd love for you to, share maybe the types of personal stories we should and should not share. I think
Yes,
that'd
so
be
glad you
very
asked.
helpful.
Yes. So, what you want to share is a challenge that you've made it through.
Mm,
And you can clearly share the steps. I did this, this, and this. That's how I got out of what I call the pit. So
mm.
imagine that you're in a pit and then there's the pinnacle, which is the top. The top, the cliff, you're like, hey, anybody out there? Can you throw me a rope? Right? So imagine that you're now the person at the top throwing the rope down to your audience who's in their pit. And your rope has these little knots on it. And it's
Mhm.
like, first you step on this one, then you step on this one,
Mm,
then you step on this one. So that's the kind of story that you want to share, something that you can clearly outline the steps. What you do
mm.
not share is this. And if you're listening, write this down. Never reveal what you haven't healed. Never reveal what you haven't
Oh,
healed. The stage is no place for you to get therapy. You have to be all the way through it, on the other side of it, in victory. And that's what I mean, standing in victory, so that you can share those steps with your audience. Now, that's not to say that, maybe you've been through something and you're nervous about sharing it. It is
mhm.
totally normal to feel what I felt. Am I going to lose credibility? Right? how's this going to affect my mom and dad? I was afraid for them to know
Mm.
that deep, dark secret about me. I didn't want my mom and dad to feel like they were bad parents, because they weren't. My parents were great. It wasn't an influence of my parents. It was the industry I was in, and how's that going to affect other people that were involved? Me sharing my story. How's that going to affect my ex-husband? To have that level of compassion and understanding. So I had some concerns. How do I position this so we all win? So you don't
Yeah.
want to reveal what you haven't healed. And one of the first things that I did, remember we talked about sharing the steps. So if you have a story and you're feeling like, I want to share this story, I'm not sure how, I'm really afraid to share it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to invite you to share the story first in a safe, sacred space, a
Mm.
space where people love you, respect you, and can mirror to you the greatness of who you are within that story that maybe you can't see yourself yet. So the first time I shared my story, I was going to be going to an event, and it was a storytelling event, and we were challenged with sharing a difficult story.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew this was the story that I needed to get out, but I was so scared. So the first time I shared this story, I went into my car at night on video with 5 of my friends. I didn't even want my husband, my current husband, or my kids to hear. I didn't want any of them to hear it. And the first time I shared it, I was crying through the whole entire process, like grieving and releasing the shame, the guilt. I had let myself down as far as being a good mom. I let all that out. And the beauty of what happened is my friends reflected back to me, I don't see that you were a bad mom. I see you were in a bad situation, making the best decision that you could. And when you realized that it would affect her, that was your defining moment. And I
Mm.
see that you care. And I see that you really put your kids first, even though, yeah, you did use, but once you realized it, because drugs and alcohol have a crazy effect on our brain where we
Mm-hmm.
can't see things clearly. And in that moment, I saw things clearly and I made the decision. So they really reflected to me the power of who I was and the greatness of who I was. So first step, I do recommend that you share it, just get it out and have it be in a space where you can you can be so raw that you can share all the emotions, because this is what happens. Write this down. When you feel and reveal, you heal.
Mm.
But you have to have the feeling part in there. It's the trapped emotions in our body at a cellular level that are screaming to get out. So feel, reveal, heal. That's the process. After you've healed, you're ready to take it to the stage.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So I just want to pause on that first step because I feel like, so many people that are, extremely, doing great things. They may be, starting a business, they may be, CEOs of a company, they may be athletes. And I feel like oftentimes people can have this like sense that they can't be vulnerable. It becomes very
Mm,
hard to share that story. And for me personally, I know that I always felt like when I was communicating to people, and I gotten to the point where I really healed from the trauma that I experienced. I kind of felt like I had this mask on.
yeah.
I kind of felt like I'm just posing as this like perfect person, and I'm telling them all the things I do right, but like I haven't told them all the things that I've done wrong as well.
Yeah.
So I love for you to share, like also how sharing your story, and do you feel like that allowed you to kind of break through a glass ceiling
Oh,
to, become the person you are today? To
oh my
really,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have so many great points to speak to there about wearing the mask and perfectionism. Oh my gosh. When it comes to storytelling, one of the things that you want to do is you want to really define the villain in your story,
Mm,
right? And the villain in my story is not the boss. My boss, John, is not the villain. I'm actually grateful
mm,
to him in the experience that he took me through. And the villain in the story is not my ex-husband. The villain in the story is perfectionism. That's
mm,
the villain. That's the villain inside me that shows up. That's my dark side. That's my shadow side. And then you also talked about, taking off the mask. And what's so brilliant about being able to craft a beautifully executed story from the place of, I'm not sharing this to get some kind of cathartic process for me. That's therapies for that. I'm sharing this so that if you're experiencing something like this, you can see yourself in my story and know that there's a way out. And when you share from that place, then you do what I call open the kimono. You're opening up this layer where people feel like in 10 minutes, you get to know me like a best friend. I just took you on a journey of my life from the age of 20 up to now. So you feel like you've been with me that whole time. And the industry, the entrepreneurship, the online entrepreneurship industry, there's so much distance because it's
Mm-hmm.
digital. We had to find a new way to really open up and connect. And if you listen to any powerful speakers, in the 6, 7, and 8 figures, they're always going to open with a story, every single one of them. So start listening to that. And sometimes it's a micro story. It's just like a tiny little brief story. I grew up poor, or, whatever the story was. Sometimes it's a longer story. Sometimes it's medium, like mine was about 15 minutes. So they're going to start with a story, and to speak to the part about, am I going to lose credibility? Write this down.
Yeah.
People will care more about your success when they have compassion for your struggle.
Oh my gosh. So, so, so true. Oh, there's so many takeaways there, and there's so many people that are just going to gain so much from hearing that. Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yes.
So with that, Holly, like I know that, when I first started, the process of sharing my own story, and we're going to have to get together because, oh my gosh, there's so many great things. I just want to like learn more from about how the storytelling process that you have. Oh my gosh. But when I first started telling my story, and even now, I often find that, there are some things that I found, oh, these are like great things to do. These are not great things to do. So what are, some common mistakes
Mm.
people make when they're telling their story? And that could be in a business situation. That could be, if they're communicating their story in an inspirational speech. But what are some common mistakes that
Yes.
people usually make?
Yeah. So the first mistake I already mentioned, the first mistake is telling it so that you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You can't come from that place. You have to come from the place of, I'm sharing this story for you, for the
Mm-hmm.
audience. Hopefully you'll find a nugget in here, and it has to be a well thought out story. You're crafting a story with the intention of shifting someone's perspective. So when I craft my story, my intention is I want to inspire courage. I want to inspire courage in people. Courage and what's the right word? I would say skill. Right? Courage and skill. Because it's one thing to have the courage just to share your story. It's another thing to be masterful at sharing your story. So if your story's all over the place, that can be a second mistake. So the second mistake, probably the biggest mistake I see, is too much backstory. Way too much backstory. Right? So if I can, let me share the 5 steps of creating a powerful story, and it might help you and your audience see the steps in their own story so
Yes.
that we can avoid some of these mistakes. Would that be okay? All right.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you're listening, you might want to write this down. So there's 5 steps. The first step is the call. That's the call to adventure. And what the call does is it answers the question, how did you end up in the pit? Like, how did I end up? If I just started my story with, I was using drugs, and then I walked in and my daughter
Mhm.
had them in her hands, you'd be like, okay, well, you're kind of irresponsible, loser. Right. But the whole point is to understand the compassion and to walk a mile in my shoes, so to speak. So what I did in the call is I isolated one scenario, one story.
Mhm.
And there were lots of situations. There was more than one time when I had the pressure to be thin, but I isolated the one time that was the most significant. So that's the call. Answers the question, how did I end up in the pit? The second step is, what's the pit? Like, get there and get there fast. So if you notice, I went from sharing my story as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old doing what I loved. That was my dream. Then the call, I had this shift. I was told I was not good enough. I wasn't skinny enough. I wasn't perfect enough. And that caused me to seek out a way to be thinner, which is why I ended up using drugs. So I'm in the pit. That whole part is the call. The pit is walking in and seeing my daughter holding my drugs. And when I share that with you, I'm really sharing it through my eyes. Like, I'm walking you through. If you notice, she had the pink cup, I had the blue cup. Like, I'm making a mind movie for you. So there's lots of things going on at lots of
Visualizing.
levels. Yes, yes,
Oh.
yes, yes, yes. There's lots of things happening here, but I'm gonna try and share it with you and kind of reveal the secrets, if you will. And then the third step is the breakthrough. So usually with the breakthrough, there's an internal breakthrough that happens first and then an external breakthrough. My internal breakthrough is when I hear the voice, the divine download says, if you keep going on this track, here's your future. Is this what you want?
Mm.
And then I decide internally, something's got to change. I have to change my life and I need to do it now. Right? So that's the internal shift. And then the external breakthrough is I quit 3 things. So I quit doing these things that are disempowering in my life. And then I make a huge shift to get help, that there's someone there that can support me on this new adventure. I don't know how to do it on my own. And in every great story, you'll find that there's a guide there that's kind of helping someone along the way. Then the 4th part of my story is my high value content. It's the lessons that I learned. I told you 3 things that I learned. I told you empower your body, empower your life, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated, and the power of storytelling. And the last one leads me right into my content, which is I want to share with you how you can craft your story. And then the 5th part we haven't gotten to yet. The 5th part is the pinnacle. So pit means lowest part, pinnacle means the top. So I'm on top of my game. I'm on the best part. I'm living my best life because now I've not only mastered my own narrative of my own life, where I was the actor, the director, the producer, the writer, right? Of my own story. Now I'm creating my own story and I'm able to be healthy. I'm not using drugs.
Yes.
I turned my life around. I went from being really unhealthy to owning a fitness business. That's a complete 180. And then hiding my story to sharing my story. That's a complete 180. My daughter is now going to be 19 years old. She's heard me share my story several times. And, the first time she heard it, I was doing a talk, smaller audience, about 50 people. And I had her come just to take pictures from the back of the room. And she knows this story. She's heard me through the walls, telling it on podcasts. That was the first time she heard me live. And when I told this story in front of everyone, and I just said, thank you, baby. Thank you for being my hero. Thank you for saving my life. What you did as just that innocent light being, you taught me so much. Thank you for being my teacher. And she put the phone down and she ran up to the stage and she hugged me. And there wasn't like a dry eye in the place. I mean, everyone was like, oh God, this is so beautiful. And I said, why are you crying? And she said, I'm just so proud of you, Mom. I'm just so proud of you. So the pinnacle is where you really get to turn your life around and you get to share that you were able to turn this tragedy into triumph. And little side note, Tom, the trainer, is Tom, my husband.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love that.
So our passion for health and fitness turned into a passion for each other. And we have a son. So I have 2 kids now. Our son is 13 now. His name is Jordan. And, Tom's just a gift in my life in every way. So the 5th step is share your pinnacle, where you are now and how you get to help others. So my life has completely changed and I wouldn't take any of that back. Everything that I went through had a purpose. And I'm finding meaning from it. Even now, when I'm able to hear stories from other people, I have so much more compassion. I have no judgment. You can do this, on all levels, from healing the story to sharing the story to making a business out of your story, because a story makes you different from every other person who's doing what you're doing. There's tons of speaking coaches, but none that have my story. And none that has your story.
Oh my gosh, Holley. That is and you're so right about how the story truly makes me feel connected to you because they're in so many different ways. I feel like I've just lived in your shoes and oh my gosh, just going through all those experiences and then seeing what you're doing today, again, it just makes me feel so much more connected.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Of course. So I want to be ultra respectful of your time. So I know you're doing so many amazing things.
I know we could go on forever. I got more to share.
Oh my gosh, I could spend a couple of days here. I could probably spend my whole fast here.
We haven't even talked about hypnotic body language, my friend.
I'm absolutely gonna have to have one on for another episode. And the audience is absolutely gonna want you back.
That would be fun.
So we'll definitely be talking about some hypnotic body language. So I wanted to wrap up with a few questions. that I have for you, and just talking about it, the trauma that you experienced in your life. And I know that you kind of summarized a little bit about, the things that helped you move through that trauma, focusing on your body,
Yeah.
you know, changing your environment.
Yeah.
So, if you were to just summarize the three ways that you feel are most important for anyone that may be going through trauma to help
Mm.
them get through.
Yeah. Three things. Gosh, there's so many things. How do I narrow it down to
Yeah.
three? I think the first is to get support, get
Mm,
help and be in a sacred space, a safe space. I say sacred, but safe space where you can share all of yourself, the
mm-hmm,
good, bad, and the ugly, because that in and of itself is going to heal and teach you so much about why you went through what you went through, and that you can trust people, because the instinct is, I'm broken, something's
mm-hmm,
wrong with me, I made bad decisions, and we don't want to be kicked out of the tribe, right? Our reptilian brain says we need to be accepted, we need to be respected, we need to have credibility, and if people know these things about me,
mm,
it kind of goes back to our caveman days. If they know that I made these bad decisions and did this horrible thing, they're not going to want to be around me, and I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe. And that means death at a cellular level. We kind of know that. So to be in a safe space where you can be that vulnerable and be held and be
mm-hmm,
seen that there's still greatness within you, that I think is number one. Get help. Number two, have it be in a sacred space. Number three, make an empowering meaning from it.
mm,
And this is probably where we see people like maybe go through therapy or go through getting help. And you can have two people that have the same experience, but they take a fork in the road. And there's a great metaphor that really illustrates this. And, there's two brothers, and one is extremely successful in all areas of his life.
mm-hmm,
He's a millionaire, he's got beautiful family, he's got the love of his life, and he's healthy and fit. His brother is down in the dumps, always has money problems, relationship problems, just can't seem to get his life together.
mm,
And someone asks the got it together brother, how did you end up this way? And he says, well, my father was an abusive alcoholic. So how else could I be? And they ask the other brother that can't keep it together. And he says, how did you end up like this? And that brother says, well, my father was an abusive alcoholic. What else
mm,
could I be? So it's the meaning that we create from these experiences. I wanted my experience to mean I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to share my experience with somebody, and it can help them get out of the pit and reach their pinnacle. That was the meaning that I wanted to create from it.
mm-hmm,
And that legacy continues to live on, not only with me and my clients, but in my family and in my daughter. So she has the courage to tell her story, to speak her truth, to stand on her story, not in it. And when you make that decision to have an empowering meaning from it, what can I make this mean? And you get to again be the creator of your own story. You're the actor, you're the producer, you're the director, you're the executive producer. You get to do it all. When you again make an empowering meaning, that's when your story comes to life and your history completely changes. I really believe that you literally change your history at a cellular level within your own body, and the body that remembers those things. Yeah.
that is absolutely amazing. And oh my gosh, it reminds me of the quote, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. It's really what we take away and the lessons that we can take from that pain, as you said, and then create something beautiful, which you've absolutely done. So thank you again so much,
Thank you,
Holly.
Kofi.
So I'd love for you to share also, we were touching on it a bit before, that life will often present, as we find a solution, we'll have another problem. And then we get to another place where we have another solution, then we have another problem.
Yeah.
Just this continuous path that life always likes to throw in our space.
Yeah.
So what are, some habits or some safeguards,
Mm.
things that you do, when you are having, like a bad day
Mm.
or a bad week, some ways that you kind of check in with yourself to keep from going back to that place, that
Yes.
bad place when you were using?
Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you so much for this question. I love it. I'm actually creating a free challenge all around this
Mm,
in my Facebook group. So there's three things. It's state control, story, and strategy.
mm,
State control, story, and strategy. So state control, what that means in neurolinguistic programming kind of lingo,
mhm,
is that we are in charge of how we feel. But unfortunately, 99% of the population believes that, oh, it's the guy that cut me off. Now I'm mad at you because you did
mhm.
that to me. Oh, it's the bank that messed up a charge and now I have NSFs. It's, the bank is making me upset. Or
Mhm.
it's the things that happen in my history, right? So when I have a bad day, and I do, then I know that the worse I'm feeling, the more I need to start with my physicality. So you can talk
Mm.
yourself as much as you want, like you can do affirmations, and I believe in that, but nothing shifts your mindset and your emotions faster than changing your body, the state in your body. So I exercise every day. I get up, and actually the less I feel like exercising, the more I know I need to go do
Oh,
it.
yes.
It's not the other way around. I don't feel like working out, so I'm not going to. Nope. I don't feel like working out, so I better, right? Because otherwise I know you're either spiraling down or you're spiraling up.
Mhm.
That's the only two directions you can go. So exercise. And it's funny you say this because I just wrote out, like, what are the things that I do that help me live my best life daily? And it's meditate,
Mhm.
pray, exercise, and it's
Mhm.
any way that is fun to you. So
Mhm.
sometimes I run, sometimes I lift weights, sometimes I do yoga, Pilates, whatever. And yesterday I got myself in a peak state by listening to music and dancing. Yeah, dancing like nobody was watching. I was locking the doors because I was
Yes.
having a bad day. I was like, I need to feel good. So, I used to teach Zumba. So I put on some music and I started doing some stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I feel really good. Right. So what are the things that you can do that when you're living your best life, you can go, this is a common denominator. As long as I'm
Mhm.
doing these things, I have a good day. So the other thing for me is eating lean and green.
Mm.
Lean and green. So that means I have a salad every day with protein, that I eat as clean as possible, no matter where I am. Limit sweets, limit sugar, limit salt, limit alcohol, all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Moderation, though. Moderation, right? Moderation. And then, kindness. Kindness is something that I'm playing with right
Yes.
now.
Mhm.
There's a hack that they've just starting to research, a mind
Mhm.
hack, that the more kind you are,
Yes.
you actually tap into higher cognitive abilities. So, okay, who can I do a positive review? Go on someone's page and
Mhm.
write them a review, like write you a review for your podcast every day, doing an act of kindness, not because I want someone to know I did it, but because it just feels good. So that is something too. Expressing love. My husband, my kids, we express love all day long, all the
Mhm.
time. We say it, and then we have different, love strategies, whether it's like playing with your hair or tucking you in or telling your story or whatever. So finding those things that you go, when I'm having a good day, what's the common denominator? And then actually building that into your day intentionally, and then reviewing your day. So a lot of people will start with their day with a list of things to do, but not many people end their day with, what am I proud of?
Mm.
What did I learn today? What did I give today? How did I expand today? How did I grow today? How did I, maybe mitigate some of my shadow side? Because it's going to show up. We're all imperfect. Was I more loving with myself? Was I more forgiving
Mm.
with myself? What did I learn today? So having a sequence that you go through when you go to bed is really powerful. And here's the really cool thing
Yes.
about it. Check this out. You don't actually have to know the answers. You just have to ask the question.
Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. Oh, I feel like in so many times in life, there can be just so much uncertainty, as we begin a new journey. So many different times we're just like, all right, we may try to ask everyone and we don't get the answer. And we're like, oh my gosh, what should I do? What should I do? And it's all right
It's
to
all,
just
yeah,
accept and be present.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
Holly, thank you so much
Oh,
for all the time that you spent. This has actually just flown by, and I can't wait to have you on again. So let the listeners know how they can connect with you,
Mm.
how they can connect with you, so they can share more in the experience. And this is just such a short time. So I know they'll
Yeah.
definitely want to check you out. Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share more, Kofi. I really appreciate it. So, if you want to connect with me and actually talk to me, you can find me inside my Facebook group, which is called Shine on Stage.
Mm.
Shine on Stage. And in my world, all of life is a stage. So, so you can connect with me there. Come on in. Let's start a conversation. And I also have a free gift for you if you want to learn more about
Mm.
storytelling and how to use conversational communication skills like hand gestures. I have a guide for you. It's the 15 hottest hand gestures to add sizzle to your communication style. And you can get that at Holley Mignosi. That's HOLLEYMIGNOSI / hot 15. That's HOT 15. And that's going to be your little guide to how to add more hand gestures so you can be more charismatic and confident in your communication.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Definitely check that out. You guys got to check out our Facebook page, and absolutely free gift for the hand gestures. That is going to be so impactful in your communication, your storytelling.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Holly, again for this time. And I can't wait to again, connect and have you on the podcast. There's so many things we want to delve into. Oh my gosh, you're
Well, thank you
awesome.
so much, Kofi, for having me. You are a brilliant host, and I just want to acknowledge that you really know how to bring out the best in your guest. I feel so good with everything that I was able to share. So thank you for that opportunity. It means a lot.
Thank you.